Good afternoon, everyone. You're very welcome to this ASHRAE Ireland webinar, and we're delighted to be able to welcome Mick Schwedler, ASHRAE Society President for 21-22, to join us today. My name is Daniel Coakley, and I'll be chairing today's session. So just before I hand over to Mick, I'm just going to go through some housekeeping and general information. So after the main presentation today, we'll also have some time for a Q&A before I finish off with some closing announcements. So if you haven't joined us before, I just wanted to highlight a couple of points regarding participation in the webinar. So as you'll have noted, everyone is muted, but if you would like to ask a question, please use the questions tab in GoToWebinar or the chat function to submit your query, and we'll do our best to answer it at the end of the session. You can submit questions at any time during the webinar, so don't wait till the end. Try to submit them throughout the webinar so that we have time to get to them. If you do have any difficulty or you want to follow up afterwards, our email contact details have also been provided. You can access a PDF copy of today's presentation in the Handouts tab, and I suggest downloading these because there are links, at least in my presentation, there's a number of links that you might want to use to access further information or different material. And lastly, when the seminar is concluded, you'll receive a very short survey, just 3 questions, which we'd really appreciate your response on to provide feedback for future webinars. So since COVID, we've moved all of our events online, which has allowed us to host a large number of international speakers on a variety of topics, and you can find links to previous technical talks that we've held since the start of the year, and indeed previous years on our website in the webinar section, and the links on this slide will provide you access to the YouTube recording of those webinars also. And since the brief summer break, we've also now returned to a regular schedule of events and already have some excellent speakers lined up from now until December, with some more to be announced shortly. You can register for most of these talks using the links on the slide. I also just wanted to highlight that we have upcoming ASHRAE HVAC Design Essentials Training Level 1 and Level 2 to be held virtually next month. Just some information on that on this slide. There is more information on our website, but if you are interested in registering, the deadline is actually tomorrow, the 23rd of September. Partially this is due to accommodating some of the postage of required training materials, which needs to be sent out physically. So if you are interested, please contact Karen at the email address on the slide before tomorrow in order to register your attendance. So in addition to the local webinars and training that we provide in the ASHRAE Ireland chapter, the ASHRAE Learning Institute also continues to run a range of courses which are available at the link in the slide, and I've just taken a screenshot of some of the upcoming courses between now and December. So one of the things I just wanted to highlight, there's a couple of new initiatives and ongoing initiatives within the Ireland chapter I wanted to highlight before I hand over to Mick. One is the ASHRAE Ireland Student Awards, which are now in their 3rd year, and these will be announced at one of our upcoming technical webinars on the 15th of October with Tom Lawrence. So each of the 3 winners of the ASHRAE Ireland Student Awards will receive an ASHRAE Smart Start membership valued at $225, and that includes 3 years membership after graduation, as well as provision of handbooks for each year. We'd like to say thanks to Google for their sponsorship for the Student Awards program. Students at any higher level institute can also avail of 1 year's free ASHRAE membership by filling out the application form on our website or contacting your local student branch advisor, which is also listed on our website. Places on that program are limited, so early application is advised, and please allow up to 6 weeks for processing because we're currently taking applications on a rolling basis. And again, thanks to Daikin as our student award sponsor, who've helped sponsor this program for the last number of years. Finally, I'm really excited to announce that this year we're launching a new ASHRAE Ireland Mentorship Programme, which is being coordinated by our YEA, that's the Young Engineers in ASHRAE Committee, headed by Conor Dean, and that's in collaboration with CIBSE's Young Engineers Network. And the aim of this programme is to provide career support and guidance to young engineers at early stages of their careers by pairing them with experienced mentors in the industry. Students and graduates, as you know, have been particularly harshly affected, I suppose, by the COVID restrictions. That has really impacted a very crucial phase of their education and networking for career opportunities. Therefore, we hope that this programme will help to provide some small support to these young engineers, as well as also offering benefits to our panel of mentors. So if you're interested in participating in the programme, either as a mentor or a mentee, we're currently accepting applications on our website. And I'd also like to say a special thanks to our sponsor, CIM, who've helped make this initiative possible this year. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand over to today's special guest speaker, Mick Schwedler, who is ASHRAE Society President for 21-22. Mick is an ASHRAE Fellow, recipient of ASHRAE's Exceptional Service, Distinguished Service and Standards Achievements Awards, and was previously chair of ASHRAE 90.1 Standards Committee, which serves as the US National Energy Standard. Mick also served as chair of the Advanced Energy Design Guide Steering Committee and has authored portions of the original ASHRAE Green Building Guide. Today he's going to speak about his presidential theme for 21-22, which is on the topic of personal growth, global impact, feed the roots. So I'll hand over to you now, Mick. I'll just make you a presenter.
Thanks so much. Good afternoon. It is an absolute honor to be with you today. I'm going to show my screen and show the right one. The correct one. There we go. And we're going to do something a little bit different today, and that is we're going to start out with some interaction. So if you could please either use a mobile device or on your computer, open a web browser. And people have told me this could be dangerous because you might get distracted, but I'm okay with that. So if you could go to www.menti.com, MENTI.com, and use the code on the screen, please. 4815-7442, and input what year did you first attend an ASHRAE event or become involved in ASHRAE. And as you do that, I'd just like to say a few things before we get started with the rest of the presentation. That is, first, thank you to the Ireland chapter for what you've done the past year. We know it's been hard, but the list of presentations you had last year were extremely impressive. I want to let you know that it's your President Daniel Coakley's first wedding anniversary yesterday, so you may want to reach out to him with personal congratulations, because the personal part is we aren't just ASHRAE people, we're real people too. And finally, your mentorship program really is in direct connection with the society theme this year that we'll be talking about. So thank you for those who've put things in. For those who haven't yet, I would like you please to have that screen available at menti.com with the number there, because we're going to come back to this a couple times during the presentation. 1979. Congratulations and welcome to the vintage person. Fantastic, wonderful to be with you. And we're going to get started with the society address. ASHRAE's growth is and always has been directly related to our members' personal growth. This afternoon, we're going to go on a journey, and we'll see that since our society's inception, the focus has always been on that personal growth. We're going to explore our rich history, but not for history's sake, but to appreciate how our founders put into place 3 sets of roots, and then nourish those roots, which led to our global growth and impact. Then we'll come full circle to understand the importance for each of us to feed the roots today and for future generations. ASHRAE's heritage, our roots, begins in 1894 when 75 engineers meet in New York City and found our predecessor, the American Society of Heating and Ventilating Engineers. A founding member, Harry Crane, put into words the reason for our society's being. First, we wanted to form acquaintances, and as many of us have found, lifelong professional and personal friendships, and to exchange theories and experiences, whether it's been in our workplace, at an ASHRAE meeting, or perhaps in the evening at a pub, arguing about different system designs. We've all done this, and sometimes those conversations get pretty vigorous. And finally, we wanted to consult and network with one another. These form our member-to-member connections, and these member-to-member connections and personal growth have been a tenet of our society since 1894. We now fast forward 12 years to our convention in Chicago. On July 19, 1906, Chicago members request permission to form a chapter. Chapters are an ASHRAE hallmark, and we refer to them as our grassroots, and these grassroots have spread worldwide, and these augment and add to our personal growth. So as these grassroots have built upon this, we've moved forward. The growth started outside the US in Ontario, Canada in 1992, and by 1956, we had organized into regions and grown significantly. But we were still exclusively North American. In fact, it wasn't until 90 years after our founding when our global journey actually began, with chapters in Singapore and Hong Kong, then India, Africa, and Mexico, Europe, the UK, and the Middle East. Today, we are 199 chapters worldwide, with the most recent being in Peru, Libya, and Alexandria, Egypt. We now pause, and we're going to ask a question. How did you get here today? Who invested in you? Who fed your roots? Please go back now and take out those personal devices. And list the names of 2 to 3 people who helped you grow. They brought you into the industry. They helped you grow personally, perhaps within your community, within your family. That is 2 to 3 people who fed your roots. Nice. And this is always a time of memory. Who are our mentors? And the mentorship program you're looking at for this year is an absolute mirror of the society theme. Anger. Nice. And we'll come back in a few minutes and move forward. For many of us vintage people, for example, the person who began in ASHRAE in 1979, it was probably hard to narrow down to 2 to 3 names. I know it was for me, but here are the first. In 1981, I was hired into a group led by Neil Patterson, and I had no idea. Neil would become ASHRAE president about a decade later. And at that point, we didn't have our web. We didn't have the polite way to connect a colleague, but Neil kind of had his own personal way to connect a colleague to ASHRAE, and it went like this: you will be involved in ASHRAE. And then he provided the support to do so. That support led me to attending technical committee meetings, and frankly, the first two weren't good fits. So if your first foray into ASHRAE isn't successful, persevere. It's worth it. One Monday night, I walked into TC 1.5 computer applications, and the leadership, including Charlie and Mike, welcomed everyone to the big table. That is to get involved, to contribute. They then mentored me as I foundered in my first subcommittee chair assignment. And all three have been fantastic mentors. They've helped me grow. They persevered with me as I was learning. And special thanks today to Charlie Culp and Mike Brambley for feeding my roots. We now move on to our third set of roots, and that is our technical roots, which really started in 1917 when we founded our research bureau. It was later led by F. Paul Anderson and Margaret Ingalls, and here we are more than a century later, still independently funding our research. They put into place research subcommittees to oversee that research, and those became the precursors of our present technical committees, not only responsible for research, but also our standards development, our handbook chapters, and our education. So our roots are spread wide. We have our personal roots, we have our grassroots, we have our deep technical roots. We get involved in our chapters, and we contribute in our chapters and regions, or through our technical contributions. And when we unite collectively, we have tremendous global impact to serve humanity, which are the first three words in our mission. Let's look at a few ways that we've done this collectively. First, our technical, educational, and training materials are well known and respected worldwide, and they're available to everybody through our technology portal. These help ensure that the built environment is resilient, it's reliable, it's efficient, and allow us to expand and respond to our world's ever-changing needs, such as decarbonization. Next, our research. You and members like you have funded research for more than 104 years. For the last year, during a pandemic, $2.3 million, and since 1959, $78 million. This allows the research to be independent and not have to get the answer that the people providing the money want. That makes it credible, it makes it global, and it makes it impactful. Next, I've had the chance and the opportunity as an ASHRAE board member to attend other organizations' conferences. I will tell you that they absolutely covet our Young Engineers in ASHRAE program. Now more than 20% of our membership, YAE was a vision of many. And now the young women and men who began in YAE are our leaders, leading us into the future while connecting us with the professionals and the students entering our industry. Finally, our most recent global impact has been our epidemic task force. Through the volunteer efforts of more than 150 experts, including people in the UK, we have gotten information out, become a beacon to the world so people can be in their buildings, they can be safe. You have then taken that information to your customers and helped people reopen their buildings. The impact has been global, and this has touched each of us personally. My wife, Jen, has an ASHRAE magnet on the back of her van. She was visiting with a college roommate. Her roommate works for the La Crosse County Health Department, where we live. Jen's college roommate turned to her and said, ASHRAE, we use their information, and that is impact. Now, in today's terms, it's time for a shout out. We would not have made it through the past 16 months without the vision, wisdom, and drive of President Chuck Gulledge. He visited 154 chapters, only 2 of them in person. He reached out. We became that global beacon. He said we should embrace technology and become fully digital. Well, we did that. Special thanks to Chuck for his wisdom and his guidance. But thinking back, we all know that being fully digital has been hard. This was explained by author Alvin Toffler in his 1970s book, Future Shock. In it, Toffler opined that as technology around us becomes higher and higher and more invasive, we as people need and crave those personal connections. For us, our member-to-member connections. To explain this, he coined a term, high tech, high touch. So how do we use our personal, our grassroots, and our technical roots combined with this high tech, high touch thought to move forward? Now, many times I've heard people say, I can't wait until things get back to normal. Please take no offense, but I don't think we have any desire for normal. What we really want, we want the extraordinary that we have. So we'll use our roots, we'll use technology to move on to extraordinary. Here's how. First, our technical roots will continue to be fed by our technical committees, by our research, and by our educational materials. And they'll be delivered both virtually and in person. Our distinguished lecturers, who are often known as our ASHRAE's most successful program ever, will continue to be available virtually. That's the high-tech part. And hopefully, when Tom Lawrence is scheduled to come out, they will be in person with you when it's safe for the chapter and safe for the DL. That will be the high touch. Next, our Presidential Award of Excellence, which is a roadmap for chapters, recognizes, it's streamlined and it recognizes intragenerational and intra-regional events. So now we can use that technology to reach out to others not in our chapters. In addition, chapters, regions, and even society will be using technology to have hybrid events. In a week and a half, I go to a region at large hybrid events. Some will be in person, some will be attending virtually. That allows people who can't travel for whatever reason to still be involved. Now, we started with our root to our grassroots, our chapters. This picture from 1906 where everybody kind of looked like me, but some of them had hair. And we have grown, we have changed. Our member-to-member connections are vibrant. They're extraordinary. Vintage and young, women and men, global cultures. So in addition to our present membership, we'll continue to support women in ASHRAE, young engineers in ASHRAE, and students. In addition, there's a new board, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Subcommittee. We're going to reach out to those presently underserved within ASHRAE, because it's not one or the other. It's all of us together that make ASHRAE extraordinary. And the fact is, nothing happens without you, our volunteers. No matter how you choose to contribute and get involved, you are our lifeblood. And the deep, widespread, and resilient roots you put down weathered the storm and helped bring ASHRAE through a global pandemic. You are extraordinary. Now we're going to use these grassroots, personal roots, and technical roots in three ways moving forward. And the first one is what we refer to as learning pathways. These are mini curricula put together to feed the roots. The first is HVAC basics. It's meant for young engineers in ASHRAE, young professionals, or those who just want to serve their customers better. The next are pathways, pathogen mitigation. It's very still useful today and helps us prepare for future health issues. Our next initiative uses technology and has two different paths. ASHRAE is already involved in social media, but not all of us. This is a picture of me being dragged kicking and screaming into Jen and my wedding ceremony 37 years ago today. But this is how I felt about social media. I just didn't get it. But social media is the way young people young professionals coming into the industry communicate. So it's our job to reach out to them, and I am enthusiastically on ASHRAE's Instagram page, and we're going to move forward, and hopefully you will, even vintage members like me, will use this technology. Now, the second path for this using this technology is what we refer to as member-to-member connections. Each month we have 12 to 15-minute videos. They're patterned after US President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's fireside chats. But these videos are with our ASHRAE members. The first two are on the presidential site. Jeff Bolt talks about the benefits to ASHRAE employers for having their employees involved in ASHRAE. And then Dr. Julia Keene from Kansas State gives a woman's perspective on ASHRAE and the industry involvement today. And men who are in the audience, I've known Julia for 8 to 9 years. We're close friends. I learned things as we held that interview. Please go out and listen. We can learn things that make our society and the global society better. Now, if you take one thing away from today's presentation, I hope it's our last initiative, and it includes a request for you. A little bit earlier, you made a list of people who fed your roots. We're now going to ask you, to make another list. Whose roots are you willing to feed in the next 2 to 3 months? It's somebody you already know and admire. It could be someone in your workplace. It could be a chapter member. It could be somebody in one of the firms that you work with. It could be in your community, a faith group, a family. So please list the name of 2 to 3 people whose roots you will feed in the next 3 months. Often a fantastic part of this is that the names are different than they were on the first list. A lot of the people who fed their roots were more vintage members who kind of look like me. A lot of times the people whose roots we will feed don't look like us, don't have the same heritage, don't have the same backgrounds, don't have the same types of names. And that's exciting because it shows our global growth, our global expansion. So thank you for sharing that, and you can keep doing that as we move forward. And now that you've made the list, reach out to them. Each time you do, you take us back to Harry Crane's vision for ASHV 809 in 1894 and ASHRAE as we move on to extraordinary. I'm going to share a way my roots were fed in the past year. And it was very impactful for me personally. It reminded me to feed the roots of those closest to us who sacrifice so we can be involved and volunteer in ASHRAE. I knew about and I knew of Heather through her involvement as a young engineer in ASHRAE, but we hadn't volunteered until I attended the Joint Region 9 and 10 CRC in 2019. The night before the CRC, I met her husband David and learned they were expecting their first child. Now throughout the CRC, Heather, who was chair, tirelessly led a very small group, literally 3 to 4 people, who did all the behind the scenes work to take care of all the people in that other picture. They did amazing things and delivered an extraordinary Chapters Regional Conference. And I learned that Heather was a vibrant and extraordinary engineer and leader and mentor. Now, little did Heather and I realized that the next time we would see one another would be about a year later, and it would be during the virtual 2020 Region 10 CRC. and 9-month-old Cohen was with her. Our global impacts serve Cohen and his generation too. So we've come full circle, guided by our mission. We get to serve humanity every day, and that's an honor and it's a privilege. We each are involved in our chosen ways, and we contribute the way we see fit. We do it because we help others grow personally and professionally, and we also grow personally and professionally. We do it because collectively we have tremendous global impact. And we do it because that global impact serves the world's as well as our personal future generations. And all this is true. And all this occurs because we are true to our deep, widespread, and strong technical roots, grassroots, and personal roots. Ladies, gentlemen, feed the roots.
Thank you very much, Mick.
My pleasure. I'm trying to stop sharing my screen. Has it stopped yet?
It stopped. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, thanks very much, and yeah, congratulations to you two on your wedding anniversary today. So thanks very much for your best wishes. So just anyone that wants to ask a question to Mick, please feel free to just type it into the questions tab. There's just one question in. So we're joined by one of our ASHRAE past presidents, Bjarne Olsen, actually, is your 1979 response. And he was asking, do you think US international politics will influence people's decision on becoming an ASHRAE member?
Bjarne, that's a great question and a hard question. As ASHRAE members, we try to stay out of the politics, but I think that right now people outside of the US view our political situation differently than they did a year or two ago. And if that is beneficial to reaching out to ASHRAE members, possible ASHRAE members, I look at that as certainly a positive. We need to, as a society, as ASHRAE society, become more global focused and less US and North American focused. I will say, given my personal background, and what I see is a lot of times people in the US and North America, we start out thinking US and North America. And when the connections we've made over the last 20 to 25 years are invaluable. There's so many things. I was looking at the list last year of the presentation you gave to the Ireland chapter on energy efficiency initiatives and techniques used in your locations. We can learn one another, and the technology allows us to do that. So I see the technology along with the global lessons we've learned helping us become bigger, but more importantly, serving humanity as we move forward. And if the political things help us, I'm in for that too.
Thanks very much, Mick. Maybe on a related note on the role of technology, we'd mentioned about the new Building Decarbonisation Task Force, and I guess that's a global challenge that ASHRAE is aiming to address this year. So I was wondering would you be able to say a few words about this task force? Or
Sure, I certainly can, and thank you for bringing that up, Daniel. So when President Boyce put into place the epidemic task force in about March of 2020, we realized we didn't have to move as slowly as we had in the past. ASHRAE has a lot of rules. We have a lot of things that get in the way of developing things quickly. The Epidemic Task Force was given autonomy. They did have to come to the board for a few things, but they were given the latitude to use their technical brilliance to provide guidance. And so we're using, President Gulledge put into place the task force for building decarbonization to use a similar manner. And the US was behind Europe with respect to decarbonization. We have a lot to learn. It's just beginning here, ramping up from a political and a social and economic standpoint. So it needs to be global. And frankly, there's one atmosphere, as we learned with the pandemic. We live in one world today. And that one world here, with respect to environmental emissions and decarbonization, the task force for building decarbonization is meeting every 2 weeks. They have, I think it's 8 different subgroups at work. I attended about an hour of their meetings yesterday, and they are getting information out. If you want to be part of it, you can send an email. I forget what the email address is, because we need brilliant people from all over the world involved in this, which is the next thing that we're affecting. But I'm going to do a shout out to Bjarne, and that is indoor environmental quality. Think of going through the last year without the information that ASHRAE members provided. We are an essential industry, and that indoor environmental quality ensures that people are safe. It ensured that people could reoccupy their buildings, and not only did the ETF give that information, but you took it, and you took it to administrators, you took it to building owners, in our case of the people who operate our schools, to get our children back in schools and educated. So we have a lot to offer as ASHRAE, and it's done through our grassroots, through the work you do with your business associates each day.
Could I jump in with a question? Michael, thanks so much for that. I just want, on a sooner topic, I believe, in relation to addressing the decarbonization of our built environment. We have a team running through some of our technical talks at the moment, which is around data science and technology, use of technology. I suppose it seems clear that there's that whole area is still in its infancy, and that there's let's say somewhat of a lack of leadership throughout the industry around driving that. What role do you see ASHRAE having in I suppose promoting the use of data analysis and technology to address the decarbonization?
Thank you. Great questions. Data technology not only allows us to address decarbonization, it allows us to do amazing things. The technical committee actually started in TC 1.5, computer applications, has been involved in cybersecurity for about 15 years. They looked at emerging technologies. There are other TCs, the Resiliency Technical Committee, founded when Sheila Hayter was president, is using technology. And frankly, if we aren't using technology today, the word doesn't get out. Chuck Gulledge last year, if you looked at the society theme last year, to embrace technology, to use digital twins, that is a model of the building, and compare it to the actual operation. What's different? What should it be doing? It allows us to do a root cause analysis and find out, how do we reduce not only the energy consumption, because what I start with from decarbonization, if we reduce the loads, it's always good. It always reduces carbon usage, no matter what the fuel is, because it also reduces the embedded carbon in the infrastructure, for example, to provide electricity for buildings. ASHRAE's role is going to continue to find ways to use the technology. And I think one of the things we do, we actually look at, how do we apply it? How do we actually use it? So there are places for you to get involved in. By the way, if you didn't know, you can be a member of a technical committee without ever traveling to it. You just go onto the ASHRAE website, log on to the technical committee, find the right one for you, join it, and then you can help write the ASHRAE handbook chapters. How do we use the technology? And there are people, Tony, the people who look like you, know and do. The people who look like me are just starting to ramp up and learn. So you can mentor us too. And we want you to have that input.
Very good.
Thanks very much, Mick. I had another question about the learning pathways. You mentioned there was two, I think it was 2 new learning pathways. I was just wondering, how do people get involved in these? Is this new? Is this in the form of training, or is it in a kind of another?
What it kind of did, ASHRAE has a lot of educational and training material, but it wasn't well organized. It was hard to find. If I'm a young professional, what types of things should I learn about within our industry? So the HVAC basics put into place and put kind of a pathway. If you want to learn, here's a pathway that you can follow. The same thing with the pathogen mitigation. Here are training courses that you can follow. Here are videos you can use. Here are actual ASHRAE Learning Institute or remote training that you can do. In addition, the Publications and Education Committee is putting together what are going to be the next sets learning pathways, and they really want the input. They don't want this to come from ASHRAE, they want it to come from the grassroots. What are things that you want to learn about? And they will use the information we already have and then augment it if we don't have some of the training materials and educational materials available. Thanks for the question.
Thanks, Mick. I had another question just going back to the theme for this year, and I suppose one of the things that I mentioned we're excited to launch is this mentorship program, which is the first, and I mean, from looking at industry in Ireland, we didn't really see anything similar, and it felt like there was an area where there was a gap, especially at the moment when, you know, students and graduates and young engineers can't travel as much to physical events. And I know most of any of my career changes to date have come through networking and meeting people. So I'm just wondering, is it something that is common in the US, in your chapter or other chapters in the US? Is there anything that you would share from your experience of how, you know, what works well, any recommendations or advice that you could give us for this type of a program? Because I know it's something that ASHRAE does in, at least in the US, there seemed to be some guidance there for mentorship.
There is guidance for membership, I get for mentorship. I think the first part is try not to make it too formal and too structured. It really, to truly become mentorship, there needs to be not only a professional relationship, but also kind of a personal connection, so that the personalities have to meld and mesh with one another. The second part is don't underestimate the ability of our younger professionals mentoring our vintage professionals. Mentorship goes both ways. A lot of times we think of it, it has to be somebody who's old or vintage helping somebody who's younger. There's so much information in the world today that we can't know it all. From a structural standpoint, the biggest part is getting connections. When somebody gets connected, whether it's virtually, in person, however that occurs, after that happens and there's some type of meshing, then the mentorship moves forward, it gets momentum, and it works. So finding ways to connect people, making sure we don't put in too much of a structure, allowing some flexibility, and then watching it go, and finally sharing the success stories, because the success stories are where we get that snowball effect and we really start to see other people learn about it and become excited about it.
Thanks very much, Mick. I think that's some really good advice there.
And by the way, Daniel, you should be able to go into the Presidential Award of Excellence, the PAOE points. And if your chapter does this, there are a lot of things in there that hopefully you can add up some points and get some recognition for the chapter too.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's we're trying to find a balance at the moment between, kicking off. I think the plan is to kick off in late November, but really try to find the balance between that structure and allowing people to have a discussion in an informal way, in the way that mentorship works best, I think.
Yep.
So, I don't know, Tony, if you have any other questions, feel free to jump in. I'm just trying to see if I've got anything else here coming in.
Nothing at the moment, Daniel.
Okay.
Well, Daniel, I want to say thank you for the invitation. It's been an absolute privilege and honor to be with the Ireland chapter. I hope that at some point we can be together in person. We all do. It's fantastic to hear that things are starting to open up where you are again and getting back to and on to our extraordinary. Congratulations, and please let ASHRAE know how we can help you serve the members, and members feed that information back through your board. My email address is mschwedler@train.com, and we're open to you. We serve you, and we want to help you grow and do what you need and want to do.
Thanks very much, Mick. Sorry, I'm just trying to unmute one of our board members. I think who wanted to say a couple of words. Connor, I think.
Just while you're doing that, Daniel, I'll just jump in with one question here for Michael. There's one on GWP refrigerants. Can you provide insights about the transition to low GWP refrigerants?
I can do that from both an ASHRAE and a personal perspective. That's one of the discussions that's going on with respect to the Task Force on Building Decarbonization. I went through the first, what I'll refer to as refrigerant wars, and that's what it was from a manufacturer's standpoint. That was not healthy for our industry. The interest in lower and very low GWP refrigerants is high, and it goes beyond some of the natural refrigerants. There are GWP refrigerants that have a GWP of less than 5. They're safe. We want to make sure we use all refrigerants and use ASHRAE standard 15 to make sure that they're used safely. Right now, the biggest challenge is in our high pressure refrigerants, the packaged units, and CO2 is an option and is becoming more viable. It does have some technical issues from making sure that the vessels are designed properly and are safe because of the high pressures. It's a direction, the world is going the direction of lower GWP. And from a building owner standpoint, they don't want to, they want to be using what is the most future proof, future resilient, if you will, refrigerants. And it's pretty exciting to see that that's good. But the other thing we want to make sure is if we keep the refrigerants inside of the units, it has no effect on global warming. So we need to make sure that our maintenance is good, that our technologies from manufacturing technology to make sure we don't have leaks, whether small or large, because if everything stays contained, it doesn't matter what the refrigerant is. We can use the low GWPs in great manufacturing and installations to ensure that we have a minimal impact on the environment.
Yeah, I think that's a great point in relation to the operation of that plant and the maintenance. That's one that gets a little bit forgotten at times, that it can be managed correctly if it's done right.
Well, looking back, if we had invented refrigerants like we used to, we wouldn't have had the ozone issue, and we wouldn't have had as much impact on global warming. So we have learned, and hopefully we have taken it to heart, that we need to not vent, not leak, and that we really don't have that negative impact on the environment.
Thanks very much, Mick. I was going to let Connor jump in. So Connor Murray is our ASHRAE Ireland Vice President. So let me just unmute Connor.
Yes, Daniel, thank you very much. I'm not sure. Mick, can you hear me okay?
I can, thank you. Welcome.
Yes, so first of all, I'd like to just add my personal thanks to you and ASHRAE, because I'm a member of a number of societies, including ISPE. I'm chairman of the Irish Cleanroom Society. I'm convener of working groups on TC209 and cleanrooms, which is my main industry focus. So I've known Wei Sun for many, many years, and a number of other ASHRAE members. But I really like the personal contact and the comment you made about technology and Alvin Toffler, which I remember studying many years ago on future shock and high tech, high touch, that no matter how much technology is there, it's really around the personal context. And I think that's fundamental to the success of ASHRAE worldwide. It's about people, and it's about context, and it's about what I call the Socrates principle of sharing knowledge and information. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And I think we're, as Daniel said, we're embarking on a mentorship program. And the future of any society is the youth and the young people going through colleges and universities, and then the young engineers and the young technicians and professionals. And as you and I, Mick, are into our elder lemon years, as I call it, it's up to us to try and encourage people to open up their opportunities, but not necessarily tell them they know nothing and we know everything, but to share our information, including our mistakes along the way, and allow them to make their own decisions and try and give them the benefit that is they're going through doing their own thing, that they get the benefit of our experience, and it helps them guide their way, and it works in both directions. So I'd like to thank you. I think it's a wonderful organization, and I'm only involved in ASHRAE for the last number of years, but I recognize the real value of it there. So it is wonderful to see that in Ireland here, because we've so many American influences in multinationals. We're very much trying to grow our organization here and make our contribution to the world and a better place. Thank you.
Great statement, Connor. Thank you for your service, and thank you for the thoughts. One closing thing. I learned from a younger member, what do we talk about our industry is doing? Heating, ventilating, air conditioning, HVAC, and R. That's not what they want. They want to be involved and impacted on sustainability, on health and safety. We call it indoor environmental quality. I think we can change the way we talk about our industry and bring in young people who don't think about our industry because of the terms we've used in the past. And I learned that from some of our younger professionals. We need to connect where they are, and they do it for the same reason we did it, to change the world, to make the world better. And today we have that available to them, and we need to let them know that there's a spot for them.
Okay, here, and I think the comment you made about the term we're hearing more and more is IAQ, indoor environmental quality, or indoor air quality, and it includes chemicals and gases and PVAs and a whole host of different things. So I think it's interesting that certainly the direction I'm seeing from younger people is they're moving away from very traditional terms in heating, refrigeration, ventilation and air conditioning into quality, the quality of the air we breathe. And particularly we're dealing with indoor environments, both in schools, in workplaces, in education areas and industry areas. So we're part of a bigger picture, and it's all about making the world a better place to live in.
Yeah. You young people are helping us learn. Thank you. Daniel, we want to turn it back to you at this point.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Mick. And I think we're just on time. And again, just to extend our sincere thanks to you for joining us today. And I know it's an early start, especially on your wedding anniversary. So I really appreciate you joining us.
Congratulations, Mick.
Thanks.
Congratulations again. So I just had a couple of brief closing announcements before I close the webinar. Firstly, just if you do want to reach out to any of us, this is our ASHRAE Ireland board for this society year 21-22. So if you do have any questions about our activities or wish to volunteer to help out, please don't hesitate to contact any of us. Links to our email addresses are provided on this slide, so do feel free to just reach out to us directly. Secondly, if you want to stay updated with our upcoming events and webinars or training, etc., just stay connected to us on through our website mailing list or social media accounts. So we're active on Twitter, LinkedIn, and as I said, we have a new YouTube channel as of around March last year, where we started to share all of these technical webinars. So do feel free to subscribe to that to stay updated. And lastly, just a word of thanks to our sponsors and supporters who have been excellent in supporting us over the last year, especially since COVID, and really continue to make all of our ongoing events possible. So that's it from us today. Thanks again, everyone, for joining, and thanks Mick and everyone from the ASHRAE Ireland board who's contributed to the discussion. A really interesting discussion this afternoon. So thanks everyone, and see you again shortly. Thanks Mick.
Thanks all.
All the best.
Thanks Mick. Thanks Daniel. Well organised.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mick. Cheers. Bye now.
My pleasure. Privileged to be here.